Getting everything administratively set up here. Just take just a second. Hello, Tammie. Are you online there? Good to see you there.
Yes, I am. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today? Okay.
Great.
So
Thank
we're
you.
okay. As always, this is a popular class, so I'm letting everyone into the room, and you should be muted as you enter. The very first batch was not, and it was my mistake. So we're letting everybody in. We'll go get started here in just a second. Okay. You do have a chat box. I would make you aware of that chat function. So if you do have a question, you can use that. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You want to share information, you have the ability to post there, and that should be useful if you potentially want to connect with each other, but please maintain your privacy. That's since it is an open chat box that we just ask you to do that. If something happens and we have to leave, well, we regroup on the actual same link. So we'll call that attention to you as well. Hopefully that nothing happens, and we always just kind of prepare for that. So we appreciate the audience, and we like to have it so that you can engage with us. So we do allow you to have your ability to unmute yourself and then ask questions. And I think, in fact, our speaker today, Tammie Bailey-Fults, is going to encourage a little bit more of that, some of that participation. So we want to do that. So here we are, and we'll go ahead and get started here. So background, GovDirections, of course, located in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been serving this sector since 1998, and a part of our service is GovSchool. We think if we can help you to learn to win government contracts a little bit better, then you'll win. Actually, we'll win more of those. And so we frequently have sessions. Today is one of our more popular ones, so RFP writing. And Tammie Bailey-Fults, who is a subject matter expert, is here with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Tammie and let her take control of the session, and she should have the ability to share. Let me just double check. Stop share here. There we go. Yeah. So if you're with us, Tammie, you can go ahead and get started. We certainly appreciate that. Maybe introduce yourself and tell everybody about your background, and we'll get you going there.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mark. Thank you again. I'm so excited about being here with everyone this afternoon. I pray that you all, well, the fact that you're here means that you're well, you're ready to go, and you're ready to win some of these contracts, right? So I thought I would change it up a little bit for some of you who may have tuned in before. I always like to do something a little bit different, just to keep you going, keep you on your toes, and so that you don't fall asleep. And then the other is that because with government contracts, so many people talk about government contracts, and so it kind of becomes a little bit of the same old. And so you really want to hear something different in that small business owner. So I try to make this as hands-on as possible. So I'm really, I'm going to take it today from the perspective of how you would engage, because at the end of the day, once you finish with this call, you're going to attempt to do some of the very things that we're talking about. And so we're going to just take it from that perspective, right? So I'm flying cold turkey, but that's the way that it is with government contracts, because when you first encounter or you're talking about starting this process, you don't know where to go, what to do. And so I want to kind of show you a little bit of that, and just to show you that it's we're all doing kind of the same things, but at the end of the day, there will be some takeaways and some practical things that you can implement and do. And Mark, I just want to make sure, for time's sake, how much time do I have? Because I know I can talk.
Yeah, so we'll try to keep it within the hour time slot. And,
okay, perfect.
I think that, okay.
Okay, wonderful. All right then. And I understand that while today is open for anyone, but perhaps we have more people who are in the transportation industry, if that is correct. Is that correct? We have some transportation people here in the industry. Okay, wonderful. Okay, this is interactive, guys. So I need your participation and I need you to talk back to me. I'm not going to necessarily be looking at chat. Mark will help me with that. Great. Thank you so much. Mark is going to help me with identifying some of the questions that you may have so that I can keep you on your toes. So one of the things that I like to start with, I'm sure that most of you are subscribers. And if you're not, I hope that you become subscribers to Mark's phenomenal tool, which really helps a whole lot in terms of thank you so much, Barb. We want to make sure that that you're a subscriber if you're not a subscriber already, because Mark makes it really, really easy for you to engage in the contracts and kind of see across the country where there are opportunities for you, right? So knowing that you are all over the place here, I'm just going to take a look at, see what's out there. I was pulling up just a few, knowing that you may be in the industry. So I want to go back for just a second. When we're looking at opportunities, and again, I take it that you can see my entire screen. And if you can't, if you would just unmute it for a second and let me know. So what I went to, and let me go back here again for just a second. When we are looking at, and you're in the GovDirections and looking at the bid opportunities, you know, the areas you're looking, you're thinking, oh my gosh, where do I start? So this is the beginning of it. You're looking under your RFP categories, you're going down, you're scrolling, you're like, I don't know, consulting, am I consulting or not? You know, perhaps you may see something there for you. But what I would suggest, given that most of you, whether you're in transportation or some other industry, a good place typically to start is under services, right? Now, if you're in IT, then this is your area right here. You see it's clearly spelled out for you, IT, IT, IT. But if you continue to scroll past IT, then you get into the services category, and just past services and supplies, right here starts the first part of services, art, exhibit, monuments, and then it goes all the way down with services all the way, if you can see that. All the way.
Tammie, I'm sorry, we can't see your screen. We can only see you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for telling me that. Sorry. It'll help, right? All right.
That's
fantastic.
much better, Tammie. Thank you. Okay.
Wonderful. See, I told you, you got to talk to me. You got to know what's going on here. Okay, wonderful. So we will go back through that again. I am on the portion of where you're at your screen. You're looking under request for directions daily, right? And you are trying to determine where do you start. If this is your first time, you may not be clear about where you need to start. So you're scrolling, you're coming down, you're moving, and you're thinking, I'm not seeing, I'm not sure. But what I suggest that probably for about 85, 90 of you on the call, most of you will fall in the area of service. Now, if you're in the IT industry, then IT is your field. You see everything here is clearly labeled for IT, and there are so many components of that portion. But if you keep going and you come down to where it says services, and starting from auctioneering all the way down, if you keep coming down, 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 all the way until you get to services for utilities, natural gas, all of that is services. So you're going to find ideally what area. Now, again, on this call, probably under the area of services, there may be others who are in some other industries such as the IT or even consulting. But here's where we're going to start for today. We're going to start with services. And again, because many of you are probably under the transport, I'm sorry, here, I want to highlight this if I can for you. Okay, so many of you are probably in the transport, logistics, hauling, shipping, warehousing, moving sector. A few of you may be under other types of transportation, charter, taxi, and emergency. correct? If you are in some of the other service areas, you have a good idea of where to go. If we have time, I will cover those as well. But for practical purposes of what we're going through today, a lot of this information will suffice for most of you, okay? So here's where we would start. And if we click under the services, transport, logistics, and hauling is to start. So with that, when we stare, this is the services, transport, logistics, hauling, shipping, warehousing, and moving. And of course, the due date here, you see the state, and then the type, meaning, and I'm sure Mark has covered, if you all have attended any of the workshops before, you know, this tool covers not only for your federal, but your state and your local, which is wonderful, okay? Gives you everything, good snapshot of what's across the country. So if we're going, today is April the 28th, right? And so ideally, if you're looking at opportunities, you want to select something that's going to give you enough time. If you, I'm sure, like any of us, everybody's busy. So you're thinking, oh my God, you know, this is just overwhelming. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Well, you want to always keep in mind, number one, about the date. And today is April the 28th. And so ideally, I would say if you have something that's probably anywhere 3 to 4 weeks out, that gives you enough time. And of course, we know time passes really, really quickly. So you really want to be prepared for information that you're having to submit, right? So I want to take a look at one opportunity that's here. Let's see. Take a look at one. I'll give you an example. And if you all have any questions, and Mark will let me know if you have any questions as we're moving forward with this. But if you're taking a look at an opportunity that is for, I'm going to take a look at this one. It's one that I am familiar with, this elementary schools mover, okay? So in taking a look at this opportunity, which I love, it's more direct. Sometimes you get ones where you click on it and it takes you into a third party. This particular one is directly into it. Again, the date for this actually happens to be tomorrow. So this would not suffice for those of you who are just looking at an opportunity, but it serves as a good example, right? So you click on the link. This is for the state of Maryland in this particular case. The print is very small, but if you're following me on your own tools, if you're looking at it, you will see the information here. I'll see if I can make it just a little bit larger for you. Okay. But this information here, this is an elementary school move. It's for schools in area. And so of course we looked at the date, which is really important. So one of the things that I talked about before is making sure there are a couple of things that I do in preparation as I'm getting ready to look at bid opportunities. And one is I start with my spreadsheet. Okay, or I may say it's bid opportunities. So I'm a big fan of spreadsheets. It helps me to keep on track. I can easily document and follow where I am in the process. And so I encourage you to do that when you first start. So that's really my step number one. Before I even start looking at opportunities, I come to my spreadsheet. A clean sheet helps. We're getting ready to start the first of the month on Saturday. So you may have it, you know, where you label this one is going to be your bids that are due for May 2021. You may, you know, then add you another sheet, which would for your June projects that are due June. You know, so that way it helps you to see, or you can keep it all on one, you know, which works, whatever, you have to do what's comfortable for you. And it has to make sense for you. This is your sheet. This is not my sheet or anyone else's. So you want to make sure that you have what you can work with. So this is where I really start. Instead of even looking at the opportunities first, I start here. And in documenting this information, I'm going to be putting, you know, these are my bids that I'm going to be looking at. And so one of the very first things that I want to look at here, I typically tell people there are 3 items that I want to look at right at the beginning. Anyone care to give me a little feedback, talk back to me and let me know what are one of 3 key areas that you want to make note of when you're first looking at an opportunity? Anyone? What's real important to make a note of? I actually stated it already. Mark, anyone responding?
The deadline.
Thank you. Very good. We do want to know the due date, right? That's real. And what was the due date for this particular one? You all remember?
Was May, right?
No, it was
April. Yeah, tomorrow.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Right. So this one is, and so what I like to put also when I'm putting, thank you so much for responding. I really appreciate that. So when you're looking at the information, I like to always put in the dates, the actual day of the week, because that helps. Sometimes you'll be surprised on solicitations, on the bids that are put out by the procurement officers, contracting officers. Sometimes they too will, they're human and they make an error. Sometimes they'll give the wrong day to go with the date. So I always check to make sure, and I put it on my spreadsheet as such, so that I'm aware. The other thing is what's really, really important is I like to put the time. So whatever that time is, I really put that in there. And then the other thing that I do to help myself is, say if it's due at 3 o'clock Eastern or whatever, I will put even an hour before that, just so I'm even that much more prepared, because that's just one of the things you will find. You're going to be running up against that clock. And so I will give myself, and whatever works for you. Again, maybe you need to put a day before, it's actually due Thursday. You may say it's due Wednesday, whatever works for you to get you pumped, motivated to definitely get you moving and to submit on this bid. So that's one thing. Anything else that there are 3 top things that are really key here, and I'll tell you this, all of them revolve around the date. So what's another date that would be definitely something that we would want to be aware of? Anyone else? No? Okay, well, I will give you a clue.
I would say the opening date and the closing date.
Oh, we got that. That's the closing date. This happens to be the same here at closing date. Yes. And that's actually due date, closing date is actually one and the same. But what's really important is that there was reference here to about a pre-bid meeting. Okay, that is very, very important when you talk about a pre-bid meeting. So there was reference to one, and this was mandatory pre-bid. If you all can see that, I tried to highlight it, March 31st at 9 a.m. Okay, and remember, this is Maryland, so this is Eastern time. So on your pre-bid, on your sheet, what you want to do, that date precedes the due date, correct? So that date needs to come before. All right, so the pre-bid meeting date and time. I don't recall sorry about that. I don't recall what day, March 29th, is it? March 31st. I don't recall what day that is, but again, you want to put that information in there, the day of the week, so that you're aware of it. And then it's for 9 a.m. Okay, so that information is really important.
That was a Wednesday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. I'm loving this group, Mark. I love it. They are so engaged. This is awesome.
Yeah, they're doing much better this time.
I'm loving it. I'm loving they're so this is great. So this date, and this is a date that I highlight also for me, because I want to be aware. Now, because you're busy, as you know, everyone is, you will say, well, I can't go to this meeting. What is this meeting? And remember, what else did it say? It was mandatory, right? So mandatory meaning that you need to be there. And you're thinking, great, now I have to take off from the job or take off. No, it doesn't mean any of that. It means you send a representative. So if you're unable to attend yourself, by all means, you want to send a representative, and you can certainly do that. During these pre-bid meetings, the meetings are simply for you to hear the information. The contracting officers, the agency representatives are going to be there. They will be at the front of the room. They are the very most important people, and they are people that you want to engage with and get to know. I encourage you to have your business cards. I also encourage you to wear your apparel representing your company, even if it's just a cap, a shirt, things of that nature, your uniform that has your company name on it, because this is your chance to network at the pre-bid meeting. There are people who will go to the pre-bid meeting. They're just going in there to get the information and they dart out quickly. If it is your first time or your third or 30th time, you're representing your company. And if it's not you, whoever you send, they are representing your company. So you want to make sure that, one, that you have the right apparel on, two, that you have your business cards, and three, that you're focused on those, making sure that you meet at least one representative from the agency, so that you get to introduce yourself, you make them aware of your company, okay? Because it's not about just this one opportunity, it's about any other opportunities that may be available. And certainly those agency people will know. Now, chances are, because they get so many business cards, they're gonna put yours in a stack, but you know how you solidify that, again, is by having your apparel wear and something else that helps them to remember. The pre-bid meeting is simply to go over information relative to the contract terms, the language, the information, how to submit, and any questions that people may have who attend. Now, for those who have sat in my class before, and Mark knows that I always say this, that I'm not a proponent of you asking questions. And you will have people who, because of course they'll say, does anyone have any questions? And I encourage you to sit on your hands. I'm not a big proponent of asking questions. However, I want to clarify that. If it's a question pertaining to, say if you're asking a question about the date, if they made a mistake and they said, oh, it's due Wednesday, March 31st, but when you look at the calendar, it's really Thursday, March 31st. Maybe you can ask a question sometimes about that. But the reason why I really do not ask a lot of questions is that it could further extend the contract due date, because now an addendum has to go out. They realized that there were some questions, there are too many questions that were not answered. I typically go with the information that is already there, which has already been vetted through their legal process and departments. And so I write my RFP and response accordingly. Okay, you will have people who ask a lot of questions, and it's really funny to listen to some of them, because you can tell who has read the RFP and who has not. And whether it's an RFP, request for proposal, or RFQ, request for quote, RFI, whatever it may be, you can tell if people are asking too many questions, and you'll start hearing the contracting people state, well, on page 6, or as we've stated before, or any number of things like that, which are indicators that it's all there, you have to read. So that's what that pre-bid meeting is about. Now, you will also see that on some, it will also state visit. I can't recall. Yes, and actually this one did say mandatory visits, and that's what this one is. It is a site visit. So there is a difference between just a meeting and then the visit. And the site visit meaning just that you are now going to physically walk the site to see where the work is to be done. So meaning that you need to be comfortable. And of course, given the type of work that you're in, you are more than likely you will have the appropriate shoes on. But if you send a representative, sometimes they don't know. And I know for a lot of the ladies, we like to look cute and we want to have heels and all, but it's all about comfort. And when you see the word site visits, just equate that to, it's going to be a lot of walking. So just make sure that you are comfortable, that you have loose fitting clothing. Chances are you may be walking upstairs. And then remember, we're in this pandemic season. And so you have to have the mask. You need to have all of, paraphernalia, everything that you need. You may want to carry your own hand sanitizer, those types of things, which I'm sure they'll have in place. but certainly it means that you need to be dressed accordingly because this is a site visit. I'm really emphasizing this part because it is so critical to the whole process. And again, if it's mandatory, you definitely need to go. Meaning if it's mandatory, you will not be able to, you can submit your proposal if you haven't attended, but it will likely go into file T for trash because you did not sign up here. And when you're signed, you make sure that you sign. Now, if someone comes, a representative who's representing your company, they are to sign their name, not yours, but they are to sign their name and they are to sign your company's name. Make sure that they put your company's name there and with the appropriate information, your email address, your telephone number, because if there are any changes, all of that notification needs to come to you and not just to your company representative. Okay, any questions on just that part? I know I went through that for quite some time, but it's really important. If it says optional, from the Tammie school and from the Mark school, optional still means mandatory. You need to go anyway. You need to send a representative if you cannot go. Any questions on just this portion? Okay. If no questions on that portion, we're going on again. The due date, that's pretty clear cut. And it's not a second beyond that. If it says 2 p.m. Central, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, you want to get it in there before that time. And so that was why I stated my trick to the trade may be setting your clock for an hour before and getting it there. If it's something that's to be delivered in person, you want to make sure that you do just that. I'm a big fan, even if it's something out of state, I will find someone that I know actually to deliver, to make sure it's worth me paying them, to make sure that I get the person to get the timestamp on the delivery. If it's something that you mail, that's fine, but you make sure that, again, you get a timestamp and you get a signature to know that it has been delivered on time. Okay, so another critical piece, date would be questions. Due date for questions, right? Or the Q&A, right? What's the Q&A due date? And so we look for that information in your write-up. It's really important. And it's important because then you will have some answers to some questions, right? If you look through the RFP itself, which that's this document here at the bottom, you're looking for, and if you all are looking to see, how did I get to that really quickly? This one actually has a total, let's make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attachments, right? It tells you here it's 6 attachments. We see 6 above. We have exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then there is the actual solicitation document. That's really what I want to look at first, because that has the, all of the information as a whole. So I'm looking at the actual document here. I'm going to open that RFP and hopefully you can still see this. What I'm looking for also is the number of pages, 36 pages. Now, I have had RFPs with way more pages than this. I do not encourage you printing anything until you're even sure that this is one that you want to look at. And even if you do, again, do not print off because you may be printing for days. That's why you're going to have this sheet so that you can line up your bid opportunities, right? Okay, so I'm looking for these deadlines, these dates. And as you look at this particular one, it starts giving you the information that you need, right? So it's telling me about that mandatory pre-bid site meeting. It's also telling me deadline for questions. This is a date that I really like as well. And this one says April the 9th is the deadline for questions. Now remember, it's due April the 29th. So you have good 20 days before that, the deadline for questions. And so you may say, well, why is that important? It's important because I'm not looking to ask a question necessarily, but I'm certainly looking to see what were the responses. So I really want to know what were responses and to the questions that were asked, because that can give you the insight I need for responding to this particular bid. Okay. So if we look at this, and this one is laid out pretty cool. I really liked, and I'm using this one as an example because it gave the right order. And I love this because a lot of times for your bids, they really don't give this type of order. But again, this is an ITB. It's an invitation to bid. It's equivalent to like a RFQ, request for quote. So everything, they're pretty straightforward. You have others on the RFP, especially where it's a lot of fluff, I call it, up front, and then you won't get into this information until page 36. But this particular one has a lot of good information. So one of the things, another part that I really always want to pay attention to is that it's which agency, and we want to make note of that on your spreadsheet. I like to keep up with which agency because I'm trying to determine, am I doing better or am I getting more opportunities in the school system? Am I getting more opportunities in a certain part of the country? Where is it that? So helping to know which agency is really good as well, okay? Also, of course, the bid title, if you're looking at a lot of different opportunities, you're thinking, I don't remember what the title is. I knew it's something about schools. So putting the bid name in is really good. All right. And again, I'm putting just all this on, and you create this spreadsheet however you want. I'm using Google Docs, but you can use a regular Excel spreadsheet. Whatever works for you is fine, okay? So you're putting that information in there. Bid number is fine. I think it helps more, for me, it helps more like on the federal contracts, but for the local, I like to usually go with the title, which is sufficient, or you can put the bid number in with the title. However, again, this is whatever works best for you. Another key bit of information here is that it's telling you the contract period. I like that. So that you have an idea of, how long, what length of time, because always people want to know, is this a one-time project? Is it a multi-year? So in this case, this one is a multi-year type of opportunity, right? So that's good to know. So we're talking about your 1-year base with another 2 years possible renewal option there. So total for 3 years, but the one to start. Is insurance certificate required? Like I said, I love this opportunity because it was really straightforward. Everything was kind of right up there at the beginning. So it talks about insurance certificate is required, and it's giving you that upfront. So that's kind of key information. And it's required, yes, upfront, okay? That's good. And we talked about the dates already, the place of bid opening. They're actually going to do a virtual bid opening. Okay. Again, this is due to COVID. So meaning that they will give information. They already cited how you can see the virtual bid, meaning they're going to open this virtually where you can probably dial into a particular number, and so therefore you would be able to see the information as it is being read out. Okay. The bids must be received. It's giving you the location, okay, which of course we want to know that. So this is telling me based on this information, and because they're going into details about the address, this is one where you will deliver it, meaning there's a paper copy. So this is not an electronic submission, because look at all the references to everything related to shipping, mailing, they're going into detail. Now here below it has the email address, the phone number, website. Yes, that information is there if anyone has questions. However, once you pass the question period, they're not obligated to contact you or to give you any information. That's there for reference purposes. There's information on here if there's inclement weather. It's telling you that the bids will be due the next business day should there be inclement weather. Again, if you have any questions, it's given the contact information. It's also telling you for location, this is referencing if you wanted to pick up the package, but there's no need to. Everything is here spelled out for you. You can just clearly print it from the document itself. But if for some reason, say you were having difficulty your laptop, whatever reason, and you need to pick it up, it's giving you the details there where you can pick up this entire package if need be. One of the things also at the top here, and that was noted on, it's noted on all of the pages, that certified minority business enterprises, the MBEs are encouraged to respond. So if your person has that certification, they're encouraging people with those certifications who are in this industry, of course, to send this, to submit on here, okay? Again, this is an ITB, and as similar to an RFQ, request for quote. So it's really, really simple, and I love that. And so I thought this would be a great one to highlight for you. Others, there, a lot more to it. But when you get some of the moving type of contracts, hauling, things of that transporting, you will see some that fall pretty much, into this same realm. So this is a short outline. This is the agenda. So it's given the definitions, it's given scope of work. It's telling you exactly where you can look in the document to see this. It also references all of the attachments that are there, which we'll go through that in a segment, just a second. Also, the exhibit information is available there. Okay, then of course, conditions that's staying with any contracts there. So when you're not sure, what do they mean by who's CCPS? Well, that's the agency, Charles County Public Schools. So they're giving some additional information there so that you're familiar. There's always introduction and background on the contract opportunities. They're giving you a little background about Charles County, this county itself, as well as the school system, which is always good just to get an overview. And then here it's telling you specifically what is right. And they're seeking sealed, meaning that it will be sealed in an envelope when you go to deliver it. And they're looking for experienced and qualified vendors to provide school content moving services. And then they go into detail to tell you about the services itself, right? So this part is really key. This is a good portion of what you need to know. And basically, so when you're looking for the information to say, what do I want to put in the description? You may want to highlight this post. So things that I do typically here is a description, because that is really key to helping me understand what is this about. Everyone sees that? So there you are getting a good idea of what the services are needed. Okay, so here we have pre-bid, due date, Q&A due date, the bid name, description, which agency, what's this contract period for, how long, and then of course, one of the requirements. So this could actually be, I would actually label this requirement. And this is about insurance. Insurance certificate is what was stated. Okay. So these are some key areas that are up here. And when you're labeling, putting your sheet together. Now you may say this is a little time consuming, but it helps so much because you can then determine if this is a go, no go. When you're trying to decide on the opportunity. Now today's the 28th. And so in looking at this, you may say, this looks really good, but I don't have enough time. So this may be a no-go, but you may be interested in keeping an eye out for this particular agency again. This agency, because they seem to have great opportunities, whatever it may be. So putting it on the spreadsheet certainly helps, okay? So they're going through and giving you the information. That was the purpose. Again, the scope of work, similar information, goes into a little bit more detail, starts talking about the attachments. The scope of work, again, it gives more details because now it's very specific. It's telling you the approximate date for when the work will take place. That is really key, right? So they're giving you some good information there. in terms of the approximate date for the work to actually take place. So I want to add that. I would add that, I'm going to put it right here up front because I really want to focus in on that. And the reason why I want to focus in on that is, you know, sometimes for small business owners, you're doing this work yourself. You may, you know, have one or two employees or subcontractors that are working with you. You may have to pull somebody into the project. So knowing these dates are really important. It helps, you know, this is, you know, we're in the pandemic, but also this is a time where people are on vacation. People are doing different things and moving about. So, you know, that's key to know those dates because now you can plan. We're in the month of April. Should you be awarded this contract, they're expecting you to do this work during that week time frame. And so if it's not you personally who's doing the work, you have to line up your team, your subcontractors to be aware of that, right? Okay, we talked about the mandatory pre-bid, which that was covered, and it's given the location of where that meeting is for the mandatory site visit. And it also talks about immediately following the first site visit. It talks about the second location. I told you there would be a lot of walking. And or even if it's not, I'm sorry, it could be a lot of walking because these are schools. It depends on how large the schools are. But of course, it also involves driving because you're going to a completely different location. So that's really key to make note of as well, just for yourself or whoever plans to attend the site visit. They talk about the arrival time, coming out early. They're making sure that bidders sign in electronically when you're entering. Make sure you have ID. That's important too, driver's license or some other form of ID. So that's really key, pictured ID. Again, these are things you have to prepare for, whether you're going or you have someone else who may actually be going. Again, we talked about, because we're in the pandemic, facial mask, things that are necessary, want social distancing, no exceptions, okay? So that's some additional information relative to the site visit. This portion talks about the delivery of the quote that you're going to be providing. Again, they're talking about that they want it sealed, telling you how to address it. And it's 3 p.m. local time, Eastern time, there from Maryland, the location. You're totally responsible for getting this information in. You know, no late anything will suffice. You have to be on time and making sure that you deliver on time for it. And this is stating that on the date that the contracts or this bid is due, they're actually going to hold a WebEx meeting. So therefore, people will be able to join that meeting and they can hear the bid information, which is good. I like that way in doing it. So you don't have to stay, because I've had somewhere I submit for people, and when you submit that, if you're wanting to have to kind of around, usually it's sometimes 2 minutes after, I've had somewhere even an hour after delivery time. So that makes it good if you can just dial in to the information, okay? All right, under inquiries and communications, this is just talking about if you have any questions, that portion of it. There's restrictions on communication whenever you're involved in the process of RFPs, submitting on any of this. You really restrict your communication. You're not to call to the office and to contact people and ask a lot of questions, especially once the due date is passed, because they've given you the opportunity to ask any questions beforehand. So you just want to make sure that you abide by those rules. The period of, we've talked about the period of the contract, this particular, it is for a year, the initial contract period for 1 year. Sorry about that. And then they reserve the right to renew the contract for additional 2 years, 1 year at a time, okay? And the preparation, this is going to, again, you know, they go kind of repeat, you'll see like, why do they keep repeating? You know, they're trying to make sure that you get the information and it's telling you how to submit this bid. This particular one, again, this is not an electronic one. It is a paper copy. So you do have to abide by that to make sure that you're getting time. I'd really encourage you all to submit on bids. You're in a better position each time that you take it a step beyond where you are today. Sometimes with bids, you say, oh my God, I didn't get a chance to submit it. I want to. It is in your best interest to submit rather than not submit at all. You need to work through the process. A lot of times people are scared to submit. It takes the angst out of it, the anxiety, the stress. It is stressful to do it. I've done it a number of times. You're trying to beat that clock and get it in. But the more that you do it, the more comfortable you become, and it's really worth submitting on these bids, okay? So this particular one is focusing on the vendor's performance, okay? Really key to it. It's really wanting some information there. It's also talking about the subcontractor, which of course you can have subcontractors. And it also states that within 10 days after, if you're notified that you are the person who's been awarded the contract, then you're to submit the names of the people who will be performing the work. So this does give you some time. So that's another part of it. Sometimes you really don't know if you don't have employees and you're dependent on subcontractors, you may not know exactly who you want, who's available to do the job. But if you're awarded, you do have 10 days after in which to provide the names for your subcontractors, okay? This is just some more information to cover from a legal standpoint about you have time to withdraw if you or make changes, things of that nature. So that's covering that aspect of it. This again is the legal aspect of the information. Making sure that if you're putting in any type of substitutions, whether equipment or supplies or whatever, that you're making the agency representative that you would be working with once you're awarded, making them aware of any changes. Again, this is all legal information. This is standard with most contract opportunities. They're covering the agency, the government entity is covering themselves from a legal standpoint. Of course, the state, they've stated it. It's known, it's been communicated. It is the expectation that you, as the contractor, that you have read this information before you proceed, okay? So all of that is what's covering all of that information. Payment terms, of course, everyone's always interested, like, well, when will I get paid? So this is really key to you making sure. This talks about the payment system, the invoicing. And so that's really key to how you are paid. Oftentimes people will say, well, I don't want to fool with a government contract because they don't pay on time. I will tell you and be the first to tell you that is not true. The government pays on time every time. What often happens is that it's usually one or three scenarios. One is that if you're awarded the contract as the prime, usually you are going to get your payment. And you see here, this is payment terms are net 30 for each proper invoice. So that's some keywords there. Net 30 days for each proper invoice. So 30 days meaning you've done the work for the first 30 days and then you submit your invoice. Key to it is that you are paid after, not before. That's pretty general and pretty typical. The other is also that proper invoice, meaning you have done your due diligence and submitted your invoice correctly. So oftentimes people will say, well, I didn't get my payment. It's due to the person who submitted the invoice that they left off some information. So that's really key, that you have someone, if it's not you, if you're moving about all the time or you're, the late night person and you're sleepy, you want to make sure someone else goes over that invoice to make sure, or you have a person assigned specifically to that, even if it is your spouse or someone else, your children, your bookkeeper, whoever it may be, who's assigned to making sure you get paid. Because at the end of the day, what's important is that you're paid, right? You've done all the hard work, so you want to make sure that you're paid for it. So certainly you want to make sure your invoices are submitted appropriately. And that's what's really key. So when I hear people say that they have not been paid, it's typically because they have delayed, they've submitted their own invoices late, or there are errors with their invoice that they have submitted. The other third part is when I hear people say, you know, I don't want to do business with the government, they don't pay on time. My ears perk up because a lot of times that means you're not the prime, meaning you were not awarded the contract, you may be the subcontractor, and therefore the prime, the person who was awarded the contract, may be paying you late. They were paid on time, but they may be paying you, the subcontractor, late. And so that, I know that Mark has covered probably a course on agreements and making sure that you have your right agreements in place should you be doing subcontracting work so that you are paid on time, okay? And certainly, of course, if you're the prime, that you're paying your people on time as well. Change orders and things of that nature, that's if you awarded the contract. Once you're awarded, you know, if there are any changes that are necessary, all of that needs to be in writing. So that's what that portion is covering. They are covering about force majeure. You will hear that and talking in reference to acts of God, you know, weather, things that are out of our control, completely pandemic. So those are things that language that speaks to that. There's also language that speaks to about bid protests, so that in the event, say if this was set aside specifically for veteran-owned only, a veteran-owned company, and then the company that was awarded is not a veteran, you know, someone realizes that you have the right to protest that decision because you see that it was stated it was set aside for a veteran and it was not awarded to a veteran-owned company. It was awarded to someone else. And so you certainly can protest that, and it gives you instructions for that portion as well. Again, this is all legal language. It's covering all the information. It's covering that they have the right to terminate. This is, again, all standard information. And I'm taking you through this because contractors and all, we don't like to read this, but if this is your first time, it's worth you taking the time. So you see why it's necessary that you have that 3 to 4 week window of time, just so that you can read this and having a good understanding of what it's outlining. Once you read it a couple of times, you realize it all makes sense. It's things that you really know and how you operate anyway. However, it's just good to know this is standard, this is and as it becomes more and more familiar to you, then you will not have to go line, letter by letter, because you'll be familiar and you'll say, okay, I understand what that is, and you can go on to the next part. This portion talks about the evaluation and how they're going to evaluate which items, and so that part is important as well. They are making this available to the lowest responsive and responsible. Keywords, and you will see that time and time and time again, it's always about who's the most responsive and responsible. You can be the lowest bidder, but you may not be the most responsible, meaning you have not shown, based on the documentation submitted, that it will be in their best interest to award the contract to you. Just because you're the lowest does not always mean that you're going to be the party that the contract is awarded to. On the bid bond, there is no bid bond for this, but sometimes, depending upon the project, there will be bid bonds required. I won't go through that, but simply what it is that they are making sure that in the event the work is not done, that there is a guaranteed, it is financial, that you provide through your insurance company or some other financial institute, where you submit a bid bond, a performance bond, but that is not the case for this one, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, this is the state of Maryland. This is, again, more information. Insurance requirements. Remember, the insurance certificate is required in submitting this one, so you would have to have your insurance in place. Now, most contracts for your industry, a lot of times in your industry, to be honest with you, you guys probably already have your insurance in place. I would hope that you do. If you don't, it is worth, getting with an insurance agency, developing a relationship with them, because you're going to be bidding not only in this opportunity, but others, but you need to have yourself covered. You need to protect yourself, protect your equipment, and protect your subcontractors, the furniture, all of that. So it is in your best interest to have their insurance already in place. That way it makes it so much easier. If this is your first time not obtain insurance, you want to get a quote from your respective agency to make sure that your insurance agent has familiarity with what the requirements are. And then you can just give them these sheets, these pages that are here. So wherever it starts talking about the insurance, you can give your actual insurance aid. You don't have to read all of this to them. If you would give them pages 19 through, let's see, 19 through, it looks like to about 22, 23. But you would give that to your insurance agent, and they know this language. You know, this may be hard, too much to comprehend, but if you pages know exactly what this is referencing, and they then can give you a better quote insurance. So I encourage you to do. The other document is signature page, just acknowledging that you have read the information that is here. So simply, it's a simple document. You're putting your information. Key to this is that you have to have a DUNS number. So again, this is part of the requirements. And so you want to make sure that you have this already. And if not, if you don't have it, then get it. But I would encourage you, for those of you who may be new in business or new to the DUNS and Bradstreet number is free to obtain that number. I highly encourage you to have that in advance because it is needed for so many, especially when you're talking about doing business with the government, the DMB number. So it requires that. This document is also asking that you check off all that applies. Now, it is not stating that you have to be certified. It is only asking a question. So therefore, you check off appropriately what it is asking. It also has, if you're not certified, but you are still a minority business or woman owns, check it off as appropriately, okay? So again, even if you're not certified, you can still apply. It does not mean you have to be certified. Oftentimes people interpret this particular document is your business relationship. It's an affidavit. You're signing off on this. Normally, when I see the word affidavit, it means that I need to get something certified. I'm sorry, I need to notarize. That is not the case for this document. So simply, it is just asking you to say that there's no collusion, meaning that you don't know the government representatives or others who may be involved. There's no sex trafficking, things of that nature, civil rights. It's asking for all of that. And then it simply asks you to sign it and to date it and to move on from there. Okay, these are all required documents, but simple forms, nothing complicated about it at all. This goes into the experience, the minimum qualifications. Okay, this is key to note. They're asking for at least 5 successful years of experience with work based on similar to what is already being asked. Remember, this is for a school. So you want to compare apples to apples. If you've done any work for a school or something of this size and magnitude, then certainly that's comparable. You would want to put that information in there. They're asking that about your personnel, professionalism. Of course, we know all of you are professionals. And so you're going to deliver on that. Again, this information is here, talks about the dress, being appropriately dressed as a school environment, children, its teachers. So making sure, you have, again, that comes in, and I encourage you to invest in yourself, invest in your business. If you do not have uniforms, and it's basic. I mean, at the end of the day, you all are moving, hauling, transportation. So just basic khakis, whether, dark navy or the regular khaki color or green or whatever you choose, having your cap and that type of thing is sufficient. You don't have to go way overboard with it, but certainly it represents your company very well that you have your adequate uniform in place. The delivery and storage, this is going into more detail for you, the person, to understand, where you're moving. This is actually, and you see how down we are. This is page 28 from when we left the top to where they really get into the scope per se. Now, remember, there was a portion that said about scope, but here is really the details of the move itself. And so it's telling you where you're moving the items, and it's giving you the actual location. So that's more information there on the delivery. It goes into more specifics. So ironically, they said scope up above, but this is actually the details of the move itself. It's way down here, 28, 29 is toward the end. And that's kind of typical, to be honest, of other types of requests or proposals, as well as the quotes, okay? And it's giving you more details. It's telling you what you will not be moving, which is good. So that way you're really, really clear. It's giving you some insight to know, and that helps you to know what size truck, how many people, all of that, because it's telling you, well, you're not going to have to move hazardous materials. You're not having to move the computers and things of that nature. So, and it tells you what you will be moving. So that's really, really good. It also tells you you're going to have a meeting, and this is again normal. They're telling you that you're going to have a kickoff meeting with the supervisor and the senior project manager even before the work starts. That's not only key, but it's also representative of what happens on every awarded contract. Again, they're going over the working hours. They're telling you the days of the week and the time. No weekend work will be done. So that's really key to when the work will be done. It talks about site damages and things, and that's why your insurance is so important. Of course, you all are not going to have any accidents or anything, but in the event things happen that are out of our control, it goes into how all of that is handled. And then, of course, we come down to the pricing, and everyone always wants to know about the pricing. That is really key. And there are two portions to pricing on this particular one. It is looking for fixed price. This is the move. There's a two-parter on here for the move from one location to another, and then from that location to another school. So that's the firm fixed price. And then they're wanting to know, what is your hourly rate? So that in the event they have to call you for other jobs, then please provide us what is your hourly rate for that. This is a form that you would sign as well and return with your documents. References. I cannot stress to you guys that this is so key. Typically, most requests for proposals and all are going to look for anywhere from 3 to 5. Typically, 3 is the magic number. And look at the level of detail. And I cannot stress to you how many times people do not have this together. In another class, and Mark knows that I start, and while I do start with this performance, what I call this is a proposal sheet. I am really, really, really big on starting with making sure that you have your references already documented. And so I highly encourage you to put together a sheet on the same document that covers for just your references, so that you can have that information together, because people are moving. You move, they move, and you forget, but you want to have some really key people. And so taking this same document, you want to put this on this particular sheet, okay? So you want to put, what's that organization name? And that's going to be your organization, organization name, organization / it can be an agency. You want to put whatever that name of the company that's going to serve as your reference. You want to make sure that you have their address, and that's the business address and telephone number, right? You want to put that on there. You want to make sure that you have this contact person's name. You want to have all of their information, and you want to put that on this sheet, okay? So that contact person name, and guys, it's important, they're asking about the person's title. And the reason they're asking for also, sometimes because of the name, you can't tell if it's male or female. They want to address them properly, because what they're really doing, they're going to call to these people. So they want to address, and even if they're not calling, if they're going to put in an email, but if they're calling, they really want to, respectfully address them. If it's, Mr. Carol. Carol can be a male or female name. So you want to address accordingly if you can. You want to make sure that this is a good contact person. You want to make sure this telephone number is a good number. If you haven't talked to these people, while call them, give them the heads up to let them know that they will be contacted. You want to have that address is for them. because if they cannot reach them, they can send them emails. Sometimes for references, they want to send a survey out. And then they need to know for this is what type of work? What did you do for that company? Description of work, okay? So these are the things that this particular reference document, but most ask for the same thing, sometimes a little bit more, but typically this is what's needed for references. And so having at least a list, I would recommend for you guys, try to get you 5 to 7 good references, and then keep up with these people to make sure that you have their appropriate telephone number. And when you get, this is the business address, right? And telephone number. But here, when you get your contact person, get their personal email address, their business email address, and their business, not their business telephone number, and their cell number. Because a lot of times people leave jobs. So if you get that business number and you only have that, but they've left, now you have no way of contacting them. So make sure you get both the business email address and telephone number, as well as the personal, okay? That's what's needed on the references. You want to have 3 great references. And here, information on contractor. You need your people, you have this already because you basically hired them. You know, they're working with you, whether it's one project or 2 or 3 or long-term, but you want to have this information. Who are your sub? And so having their information is vital to you being able to complete this form. And then this talks about, for this particular opportunity, that these are some of the other agencies that possibly you could be doing work for in addition to what's named in this particular RFP. And then there's a W-9, which is the tax form that's standard. They want you to complete this W-9 form, and then that's the end of this. So this one is not complicated. It's not, taxing. It's a good example of what you can expect and look for, particularly when you're talking about invitation to bids, the ITB, or the request RFQs. Okay, so any questions of what was shared? I know I went through some of that really quick, but I'm open, and Mark, I apologize for going over the time, but certainly if there are any questions, I am open to answering any questions.
I do have a question concerning the bid bonds.
Yes.
Are the bid bonds required to obtain before you submit a bid? Do you have to have a bid bond in order to submit it?
There's no bid bond that is due for this particular one, but when you get to others that are higher, typically you will find a bid bond is due with the, especially in construction, that is not unusual to have the bid bonds. And so those are definitely, something that you would get in advance. So you work that through that's again, that insurance company is where it comes in very important, because your insurance company could oftentimes provide that, or your bank or another financial institute. But yes, to answer your question in short, it would be presented in advance. It would be presented before submitting the actual bid itself, or along with the bid, I should say. Along with the bid documents, you would be submitting. Usually they want it via a certified cash check.
And I would add, Tammie, on this one, it's like this one here, they actually mentioned that you can, once you are given the award, at that point in time, you have to step up with the bond.
Yes.
So they can potentially get sort of pre-approved for that to have it ready to go. But
correct, right? It would be, but I guess because I've done a little homework on this one, they're actually not going to require it because of the dollar value for it. And it's, if it's projects that are, and usually it will tell you that if projects are over a certain amount, that's when they're going to require it, and that's the case with this one. So it's not required for this one. Okay.
Good question.
Great question. Any other questions? Oh, come on now. I know you all are not scared. Don't tell me that this one scared you away. This is a simple one, guys. It's basic, but it's something that you can expect. Like I said, moving forward. Again, this is an ITB, invitation to bid. It is the equivalent of an RFQ, request for quote, and the qualifiers for it are, are still relatively simple. So I encourage you to look for not only this type of opportunity, but others as well. There are the things that are necessary for you to have in place, but setting up your spreadsheet will definitely, make you feel more at ease, more comfortable. This is something that you do whenever it's your downtime. If you got, I know you probably say, yeah, that's a joke. When do I get downtime? And when you get downtime, you want to relax, right? But sometimes on a Sunday, you may want to look at the what you've already subscribed to with this database of information and go through it and then line it up so that based upon these dates, you will put them in order. You may have one on top of this one, one underneath or whatever, but at least if you can line up a good 3 to 5 for the month, you then have a good idea of other opportunities that are available. And therefore you can make some decisions around what it is you want to pursue, you want to go after. I'm still, if you can still see the sheet, see my screen here, there are a number of opportunities that are within the month of May. And because the month will be starting, this will be a great time. This is the last week of the month. This is an excellent time for you to go through this particular page. You have here on-call moving and delivery services. That's in Kansas. You have in Louisiana, laboratory and office moves. There's a lot that's out here. And this is just one area to look. This is not the only area. Mark also has the COVID up. There may be something in there. So if you don't exactly what this particular, of course, can some of the industries, other areas, see if there's something out there. But there, freight moving and warehousing that's going on there in the New York area. There's some non-emergency moving and storage services that's also in New York area. You have modular office, well, that's due for tomorrow, but that's North Carolina, and you have some others that are coming up in the month of May for North Carolina. So there's a lot out there, a little bit for, something for everybody. And I just encourage you to take a look at it to see. You will see a number of these say pre-solicitation. These are federal type contracts, those. But if you look far right, you will know what's federal versus what's state or local. The federal guidelines are a little bit different. You need to be prepared. You need to be registered with the federal government in sam.gov in order to prepare yourself in that way. But it's not something, it's something that you can do. And I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you guys, it's better to submit than not to submit at all. You need to go through the process, get the anxiety, the stress out, work yourself through it, see where your gaps are. Don't be afraid that you'll say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that. This will expose it, but it also is an opportunity for you to fix it. Okay.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
With the bid pricing, is there a way to go back to previous documents or anything previous where you might be able to get an idea on what it would be to bid the jobs and how to price it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And oftentimes you will have people who may ask that as a question. So again, that's why I stated that it's so important to look when A's first to come out, because sometimes usually there will be someone who will ask about pricing. We'll say, well, what's the pricing? And because this is government and everything is transparent. So that information would be available, or they would share it. They may even state, well, this is the first time that we've had this type of opportunity. Therefore, there's no information available for that particular school. It doesn't mean that no one else has ever done it. So you certainly will look at some other opportunities. And I believe Mark has on his, with his subscription services of how you can previous awards as well. So yes, you would look at, you first start, of course, you want to find this particular agency and see if they've ever done this type of work before, to see the previous awards. But if they have not, or you cannot find it for them, certainly you can look at other schools to get an idea. And that's serves as your framework or your basis from where you would start from.
And the other question is, would you be able to know who received the bid? So maybe if you didn't receive it or you weren't awarded the bid, you may be able to be a prime for someone. So can you go back and see who was awarded the bid?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if you recall with this particular one, that they were releasing the information, you will know it in on the, a couple of things. This particular one, they are going to do a virtual bid opening, number one. So when they do the virtual bid opening, they're going to be reading out, all of who has actually responded to the bid itself. And so if it's 10 companies or whatever the number is, they're going to read all of that. And you will hear when they read it out, chances are they may read out the lowest. I've seen it done a number of ways. I've been on ones, participating in one, just all particular order, and others where they will have an opportunity to get the lowest one. But given, if I'm not mistaken, it was right after. So nevertheless, they will release that information and you will hear from the lowest bid and you will have an idea that, okay, that's the lowest bidder. Chances are that's the one who's going to win. But once it's actually the contractor has been notified and awarded, that is public information, and you will know exactly who was awarded, and you then can contact that awarded that contractor. Yes, so all of that is public information, and even at this point, once the bid is over, you could even call back directly to the school and ask for, this individual. You can, from Ms. Eleanor Audra, who's the purchasing analyst, and who was the awarded contractor. Once it's all over, you can do all of that.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. I hope that answered your question.
I have a question.
Sure.
What does it mean by pre-solicitation bid?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What does it mean for a pre-solicitation bid?
Oh, yes, good question. Yes. So pre-solicitation, typically when you see contracts or information that's out there, pre-solicitation, think of it as marketing, where the federal government, they are asking or trying to get an idea of which companies, which contractors have the qualifications that are needed and would be interested. If you are a certain status or group, say in your case, I hear your voice, I think as female, you're a woman-owned company, then it would be in your best interest, if you have an interest in something in the Pennsylvania area, to show up, meaning that you submit some information, whatever the requirements are here, and to reference a state that you are a woman-owned company. Because if more women show up and say that they're woman-owned, that contracting officer, purchasing agency, agent, representative, whoever it is, they may then be more inclined to write this for a woman-owned company or a veteran-owned company. So when there is a pre-solicitation, that is simply stating this is before the actual true solicitation or bid comes out, the full RFP. Meaning this will be the pre to it. It will be, it's preparing you for what is to come. So these dates that are here, this is giving you the advance notice. And when you pull them up, a lot of time will then give you some additional information to state, like perhaps in the actual solicitation, it may be another month or 3 weeks. Sometimes it's the next day. They put the pre out and then it comes up with the very next day or so that the actual full solicitation comes out. So it just depends on, what's information that you have, what's included in that pre-solicitation. Okay.
Tammie, we'll make sure you have an upgrade on that account. I'll just make sure.
And I actually, no, it's no problem. I actually, I thought that I did. So I have another login as well. I'm gonna go.
Oh, okay. That's what I do. Sometimes I use a demo account. So, we can't,
yes.
Maybe you can unshare your screen at this point and then we can.
Yes.
wrap this up. We can't thank you enough for spending some of your time with us today. And I would point out today's focus has been on the transportation sector and writing responses back, because we'd ask some questions more about technical writing. And I refer back to another session that you've done for us, where you focus more on the technical writing, because sometimes I respond back to compensation studies or classification studies, and that requires a lot more technical writing skill sets, as opposed to this type of a bid situation or the instrument that they're using, where you are responding back to the a document they've already somewhat prepared for you. So it is a little bit different focus of the class. So I put in there a link to the one that you also did on the technical writing aspect of as part of the RFPs too. And only to say I would show that we do have a class coming up where we're talking about a little bit more detail about some of these questions that individuals have asked, including let's see here, get to that screen. The different types of instruments that individuals are using to actually make a purchase, like a pre-solicitation notice or sources SALT, and how those are all different. And we do have that session so we can get a little bit more detail there with our clients who have those. And that next session is going to be on next Monday. It's the first and the third Monday, and of course we'll be heading into May. And so that brings us to that focus session where we will talk on some of the some of the things you need to know in order to work with the government, like contracting instruments, how to pinpoint the opportunity, how to go back and do what Tammie just did to find that opportunity that you're looking for. And then we talk to you about the registrations as well, and making sure you're registered with those individual governments. So we enjoy that. And the performance research, which you spoke to earlier, to the one question, we kind of explain how to go about go in there and find that pricing structure, and we use usaspending.gov as a reference point for that. So if you're not a member now, you can enroll for the class here. But if you are a member, you can just call us at 800-492-8523, and we'll slot you into the class. There's no cost for that for active members. Okay. Any more final questions? Well, we thank you so much once again, Tammie. It's perfect. You're our most popular teacher, just so you know. You pack the room every time we put one out.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I apologize for having gone over, but I just realized as I get more and more into these, as I get so excited, and I love going through the opportunities, and just wanted to give something a little different. Normally, again, I do talk about the actual writing portion of it, but this time I wanted to focus on just kind of a basic, simple quote, and encourage people to look for a lot of those opportunities, because that's a good place to start. It serves as a great introduction. It helps you get some key things in place, such as the references, which is always needed, as well as the insurance.
And as I close this out, if you want to drop your contact information in the chat box, we're welcome to do that, so they can contact you directly with questions. Sure. If you'd like. Tammie does, of course, write RFPs for companies, and as in her profession, we mentioned that earlier, but it's certainly something you may want to reach out to her on. And I would point out that this is a recorded version. We recorded it live on YouTube, and so you can contact her and reach back out to her. We'll have another session soon. Thank you. Everybody have a great day.
Great, thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.